We we got an interesting ticket like this morning. It came in from person@domain.com, which is a client who we take care of. However, they must have typed their own email address wrong, because in Halo it auto pulls up what client they're supposed to be a part of, like what parent organization, and it didn't. They typed in because they're a nonprofit, they typed in dot instead of org, 0rg. They wrote in third person, and they left it with please text to help third person. So like, let's say it was let's say it was you sending in the ticket, and it was like, Eric's computer keeps freezing up. Please text Eric to help me. And every bell and whistle went off.
Oh, of course.
Hold on. Wait a second. So I had my team reach out to the point of contact at the client. And yes, this person is real. And yes, they don't know how to use a computer. And yes, they wrote in third person because that's how they write. And I was like, okay, we'll reach out to them. But like my tier one tech was like, is this real? And I was like, looks weird. And so like I had like 3 other people on my team look at it, and we all like noticed little things. And then I was like, you know what? Just call the champion over the client and be like, is this real? And see what they say. And if they say it's okay to go,
yep.
As they say, see ya.
Well,
see ya.
I mean, that's why some of those tools that are out there that help verify identification in your help desk are actually a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, so we actually have one set up. We don't have it as per usual. It's set up, but no one knows how to use it, and it's not configured right. We haven't really written an SOP around how to use it right, because much like every other MSP, we're too busy with growth and not enough caring about like how to make shit work. So, have we ever talked about this product before? Rack studs.
Yes, we have.
A little ASMR for the people at home.
That's like disruptive ASMR.
Can you imagine if someone's listening to us like full volume in their car and they're like, sorry if you're driving a Miata. These things are great. I have a client we're doing an install on Monday, and we ordered them for them, but I guarantee you they're not making. We ordered and shipped everything to their old office, and they're moving to a new office. We guarantee that this is not making it to the new office, because they also sent me paperwork from the building that of like I have to fill in like a COI for like installation thing. I'm like, we're not installing anything. We're not doing anything that the building should care about or even know about. And these things are great because like it's a 1U. We bought these are the Rack Stud Duos. They're 1U. This squeezy part just clips right into the square, and then you have the 2 bars that stick out. And you have these little caps that screw on, and these things are great and they're amazing, and they save so many fingertips and issues when it comes to is it an M5 screw? Is it an M6 screw? Is it a whatever? I love those things. I have them. The only reason I want to talk about them because they're on my desk, so I remember to bring them on Monday. Hey, go to my
but I've heard a lot of people say really good things about them. It speeds things up, just makes it easier. Again, you don't have to worry about the screw thread or size, all that stuff that
I don't like.
So easy to mess up.
I have their singles, right? The regular rack screw studs. And I don't really like the singles as much because they're a little bit more of a pain in the butt to get in, because you have to get this like red one like through in a certain way. And the problem is that they have multiple sizes of this one, which is weird. They get this through, and then you have to get this yellow cap, which you can't really see on camera, like on it to clip it in, and then you put the screw cap on. But like, I like the Duos. The only problem with the Duos is that they're only 1U. I would love to see Rack Studs make a 2U unit. Which I understand would be, scientifically speaking, complex, because it's plastic. But I would love to see like a 2U unit come out of them for things, especially because like we do so much Unify. The power distribution unit is a 2U unit. Everything else is 1U, right? Switch, firewall, right. 1U, NVR, 1U, whatever. But the PDU is a 2-unit unit. So I would love to see them come out with some sort of 2-unit device. That's all I got.
Okay.
If you're struggling with the complexity of Microsoft 365 deployment, management, and automation, it's time to check out CoreView. Created by MSPs for MSPs like you, they help you with the end-to-end Microsoft 365 administration from the moment you set up a new tenant. Packed with things like unified visibility and control of all your tenants from a single UI, to powerful no-code automation engine, baseline tenant configurations, drift remediation, and much more, you can supercharge your productivity and do even the most time-consuming tasks with just one click. Work effortlessly and deliver best practices to your customers today with CoreView. To learn more, visit atmsp.link/CoreView.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the All Things MSP podcast. I'm your host, Justin Esgar. With me always is my good friend, podcast producer extraordinaire, man with a plan, pirate, Mr. Eric Anthony. What's up, dude?
I'll just getting ready for a weekend.
Yeah. Any plans?
Yeah, we're going to a wedding reception.
Not the wedding, just the reception.
Well, so the wedding already happened. It was in Scotland a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
And then they came back because one of them is from here, from the US. One of them is from Scotland, and they got married. And so in order to have a party for their friends over here, they decided to have a reception. So we're actually, as soon as this recording is done, we are hopping in the car and heading to Virginia.
Oh, nice. My weekend is going to be video games with Roman. That's it.
Sounds like fun.
Sometimes you just need you need a day. Like, you got to take time off for yourself. Little mental readjustment. It's tough when there's being the owner of the company, right? Like, the week is it spends you out, right, a little bit. And as everybody knows, we record this on Fridays. So what is funny is that we record this on a Friday afternoon, and they still get like this version of me. Like, I'm wondering if we ever moved. Question to the listeners: can you tell when we record not on Fridays, other than the times that we've said it's not a Friday, just based on the stuff I talk about?
It's possible.
Justin sounds smarter today. Must be Tuesday. Speaking of smart people, we have a lot of smart people in our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/All Things MSP, which means it's time for From the Group. This week, Trey Ward, hey Trey, writes, I'm an IT specialist and videographer starting a video production company to help MSPs build trust and credibility with their clients. What problems do you think videos can help solve in your business? I like this question a lot because I think a lot of people have talked about this. Gary Vaynerchuk has talked about video for the last, insert amount of years Gary Vaynerchuk's been in business, just on different platforms. And I think not enough people take advantage of this. I would say that a lot of people have attempted YouTube channels, including Virtua, and have failed at it just because of the amount of time it takes. And a lot of people don't want to pay someone else to do the work. So there needs, I have yet to find the balance point between the two. But I can tell you that the number one video we have has 70,000 views, and the number two video has 500 views. It's because of what the content is more than anything else. And the number one video we have wasn't even content we wrote. It was syndicated content that I just turned into a video. I literally read the syndicated content, had my video editor at the time make a really awesome video. And the funny thing is, I have friends who have the same syndicated content, have the same video, and ours beats theirs.
Well, it just goes to show you that execution matters, right? And, video is one of those things that some people like it, some people don't. Yeah. And I do think that video has a place in every marketing arena. In this particular question, though, in terms of how videos can help specifically in the MSP business, I think there's a lot of knowledge share that needs to happen between the MSP and the clients or prospective clients. And video gives you the opportunity to do that. And more specifically, I think because a lot of us, have lived the last 4 or 5 years on Zoom, right? And even longer for people who work remotely, that it's an easy format to do a podcast like we're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you can do a podcast, you have plenty of topics, and you could just do a half-hour podcast a month. You don't have to torture yourselves like Justin and I do by trying to do one every single week. But here's my point. You do one podcast a month, 30 minutes long. You can use a program like Opus Clips to get a whole bunch of little Facebook Reels, YouTube Shorts, whatever you want to, call it. And now you've got extra video content based on the original recording, but now you've got other little pieces of content to post across social media for the rest of the month. You can also take, because a lot of these software applications like StreamYard, which is what we use, will actually do a transcript for you of the podcast or whatever the video recording is you're doing. And then you can take that transcript, run it through something like ChatGPT, and have it create a blog article for you, or create short form posts on social media. So from one piece of work, you can create a whole bunch of derivative works by which you can inform your client base, inform your prospect base, get you more well-known in those communities like Chamber of Commerce, Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, stuff like that. And so I think it's very useful in terms of doing that kind of thing.
What's funny is, as you were talking about this, it reminded me about something, going back to Vaynerchuk for just for a second. When I looked it up, this is from 2019. So this is even before the pandemic. It's actually November of 2019. So weirdly right around the time. How to make 64 pieces of content in a day. And literally he wrote a 270-page deck with how to take one big piece of content and break it up into 64 things, or how to, and making some things, screenshot your Twitter interactions, post it on Instagram, screenshot, the notes app when you write instructions, put all these things together. And basically it's like I think he has another one called the $80 strategy.
Yep.
And it's the same thing, right? You could do a podcast like this where you're interviewing other people. You could just be interviewing your staff. You could do podcast style. And the number one rule is video isn't for everybody. Audio isn't for everybody. Text isn't for everybody. So you just take one video and you output the audio, you output the text, and now you've created a much bigger thing. So let's bring this back around here, right? Because the original question was like, what problems do you think videos can help solve? The answer is all of them. And I think, Trey, if you're going to try to produce a solution for MSP owners, you can probably standardize a little bit of their things. Here's how you onboard with MSP. How do we get started with you? Here's what a normal bill looks like. Here's the kind of tools that we use for protection as of 2024, right? Because you're going to update that one every year. Here's what it means to, when we say send a ticket, what does that mean? You can do pretty generic concepts that every MSP is going to need to have, record those stylings with every MSP, and let those MSPs break them up and do stuff. So there's a lot to be said the way that works.
Yeah. And along that vein, training is a great way to use video, right? It's obviously video you're not going to release to anybody. You're still going to use it internally. But there's a book, and I forget the author, called Buy Back Your Time. And one of his hacks is when he's doing something, he records it on video so that he can give that video to somebody to train them on how to do what he just did. And as you evolve, you can actually do that where you hand it over to somebody who's in charge of the processes in your business, and then they take that video, edit it, get all the fluff out. So it's just the pieces that need to be in there. And it's a great way to make sure that you're capturing exactly how you do something when you do it, whether it's a business process or a technical process, and be able to communicate it to other people.
Yeah. So videos are great. but also don't leave out other methods. Trey, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. If you want to be from the group or have us read your question on this amazing show, both video and podcast form, and I think Eric makes these into text and uses Opus AI to cut this up. See, it's all about experience, folks. Go to facebook.com/group/all things MSP, ask your question, and one day Eric and I will be doing our research for the next episode. Go, hey, that's a pretty good question, and we're going to do that from the group.
Elevate your IT managed service provider business with SuperOps, the all-in-one platform that integrates RMM and PSA. Powered by AI-driven insights and automation, SuperOps helps you stay ahead, streamline operations, and boost efficiency. Are you ready for operational excellence? Find out more at atmsp.link/SuperOps.
You know, we always talk about this, like it's Friday, and it's Friday afternoon. We're talking about this during the cold open, right? That like it's Friday afternoon. I'm not always there. And you know what really helps? What really helps in situations like that? When I don't have to do all the talking because we have a guest, and I love it when we have a guest. And even better than that, we have two guests. Let's bring them up. We have Adam Bennett, CEO of Crosshair Cyber, and Eric Weast, CEO of ECW Cloud Solutions, not to be confused with ECW Wrestling. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. Adam, why don't you go first? Why don't you just give everybody a quick minute? Who are you, and what is Crosshair Cyber? And then Eric will come to you.
Great. Thanks, Justin. Great to be here. So I'm Adam Bennett, Crosshair Cyber CEO, and we do cybersecurity professional services. So everything from vCISO to pen testing, incident response, forensics, little compliance work. I've been in the industry 20 plus years. I ran another cybersecurity services company for about 13 years and exited that. That was mostly government, whereas Crosshair's the opposite, mostly commercial, a little bit of government.
Awesome. And Eric, go ahead, introduce yourself and tell everybody who's your favorite ECW wrestler.
It's me. We're always kind of wrestling. We're kind of the firefighters, that are out there, kind of blue team, side of the house in terms of cybersecurity. We develop kind of more of the, the defensive solutions and strategies. So we're a managed security provider, or not a managed services provider rather. We kind of, our mantra is basically cloud first, security first. We are good enough at the defensive solutions, but we don't like to kind of falsely advertise that we're like experts in cybersecurity. So that's kind of where we partner up and leverage the experts like Adam and his team.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here. So let's just jump right into some stuff here, right? Because obviously, as always, cyber is a hot button topic in our industry, and it will be until the day the industry goes away and we're all replaced with robots. Adam, for you, what do you see is one of the biggest things that MSPs who don't do full boat cyber themselves, I'm talking about like the smaller MSPs who can't afford that expertise or can't afford to have that, or at least internally, what do you see as one of the biggest components that an MSP should be leveraging out of Crosshair?
Yeah, it's a good question. And first of all, I'd just like to say, I think there are MSSPs and, they got all kind of names for themselves today, and you have the MSPs. I've always been a believer in separation of duties. And so, I know that there are some MSPs that are on the larger side that are doing some cyber work. But I think from what I've seen, it's a little better to separate those things out, or at least have clear delineation. So, I think the biggest thing, in working with the small to mid-sized MSPs, what they could work with a provider like Crosshair for would be penetration testing, vulnerability management and scanning of their own infrastructure. And, they're protecting all these different customers, but they got to make sure their own house is in order as well. So some compliance frameworks like maybe Trustmark, we can help with those things. And as Eric knows, when the you know what hits the fan, having a provider that's really very well qualified to do incident response and to help you out. Eric knows he can call me in the middle of the night. I'm not going to charge him anything. It's worked forever together, and we'll get into that stuff later, how we work together. But I think those are the big areas: IR, pen testing, some compliance and certifications, and for their own things as well as their customers.
You say something. It's an interesting point, because a couple episodes ago we had Wayne Selk from the community. I can never get the full title, yeah. Eric. Right? It's CompTIA Securities Community Pro. I'm sorry, Wayne. We all know where you're from. Anyway, but he said something then, which Adam, you're repeating, which is a very interesting point, which is like, get your own house in order first, right? Which a lot of MSPs, I think, don't in any way, shape, or form, right? Even Wayne tried to rip me on getting SOC 2 compliant. The fact of the matter is, like, even doing something like that to get my own building set up in such a way to be able to sell it to other people. Okay, so now this is going to be confusing with two Eric, so we'll just pretend that Eric Anthony isn't here tonight. So now, I'm just kidding. All right, so
we'll have a wrestling match to see who's the best.
This episode is now called All Things MSP, Hell in a Cell. Okay. Eric on Eric. By the way, just during our cold open, we were talking about what we're doing this weekend, and I said that I'm going to play video games with my son Roman. We got the WWE 2K24 video game, so that's why this is all top of mind to me right this second. So I apologize. All right,
you can just call me producer Eric for this show.
Right, okay, so to non-producer Eric, just to make it worse, what have you been doing with Crosshair internally? And let's get into a little more specifics here. Like, what are you doing internally, and why?
Well, so when we started hearing, 4 or 5 years ago that MSPs themselves were being targeted, not just the customers, we really kind of had an eye opener that, hey, we need to recalibrate and, get our house in order. Not that it was in disarray or anything, but, really kind of adopt more of the, kind of the enterprise grade, solutions that we recommend, to our customers. And, it's not, we've always had, an EDR, and everybody can, feel good about that, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, that was an accomplishment. But, things really kind of got complicated when we started getting targeted. And, we kind of took a serious look at that, and, we were concerned. Some of these things were like extinction level events for MSPs, where you'd see kind of those stories of like the Kaseya, hack and all that stuff. But there were, basically, I think it was something like 80 MSPs that were kind of in the mix of that. And so when you start adding that up, that's, tens of thousands of people who were impacted by this. So, what we kind of did on our journey with this is, we had a lot of these security tools already, but we didn't really know how to really navigate, the process, so we're kind of faced at a crossroads at that situation. It's like, do we develop this stuff fully in-house, or, and invent our own wheel, or do we partner up with an expert who's gonna, kind of get our maturity level higher, and that's largely to do with, these testing, the testing, the auditing, and, when you kind of think about it, a lot of people are trying to kind of bring this in house, and there's automated pen testing solutions and all that stuff. But I really wouldn't be able to say with a straight face that we pen tested ourselves and everything's great, and so there's, to some degree, separating this stuff, there's you're kind of following a good code of ethics here, and really kind of presenting your stuff with, the clients with kind of the honest truth, because while, I can call Adam in the middle of the night. I mean, sometimes when we're doing a pen test, our security companies call us in the middle of the night because, they're rattling around, and doing things. And, they, even though we're friends and we've been working together for a while, they don't take it easy on us, and so, we kind of both have the ethics that, the truth is the truth, and if it's on the report, don't try to cover it up and, hide it, like just address the problem. And then, if you do that, you're going to have, much better trust level with your customer, where, you're actually going to like if we just made our own report and whatever, just so somebody can file it in a drawer, it's meaningless. And having kind of that separation of duties, it helps keep us honest in our practice. And I think that, kind of by doing that, we're also building trust with our clients.
So I'm going to go a little deeper on this one. So before you started working with Adam, you were in a situation, right? You had your business. You started working with Adam. He's starting to find stuff out about you. What do you think was like the number one face palmish thing that like Adam was like, Eric, this is you have this major gaping hole that you need to fix? Like, what were some of those things that when you went through the process of doing it internally? Because, for clients, it's one thing, right? Like, if we're going to go pen test a graphic design firm, like, they're going to be a mess because they're a graphic design firm. But, like, us internally, we all think we're impermeable. So what was something that, like, you did, because you're using Adam for internal processes, sorry. What is something that, like, popped up on the radar that you were like, oh, man, really?
Yeah. So, first of all, there's been a number of those things. And, that's also because we don't stop the process. And so every pen test is, and every kind of testing of our technology controls is kind of different, year over year, and, I'd say that one of the biggest, kind of like eye openers for us was, we had an on-premise, file server. Well, it wasn't on-premise. It was hosted in Azure, but it was sort of like a stateful file server. And, there's different types of pen tests that you can do, right? You can do an external pen test and feel great about yourself because everything shows up green if you pass, a few vulnerabilities. But external pen tests, by themselves are kind of meaningless. It's basically the equivalent of like, doing, a vulnerability scan, and running, some password sprays or exploiting a vulnerability that exists. But like, if you don't have external vulnerabilities, like a test like that is not going to be a true test, once you've kind of passed that mark, right? And I mean, if people have external vulnerabilities, they're getting in, but we kind of got to a point where, we're pretty comfortable and confident in saying like, hey, our external vulnerabilities are green, and we also kind of reduce, the external, attack surface area, open as little ports as possible, so once you kind of like reach that level, then you go with, kind of the black box, pen testing where, they'll park like an appliance, kind of at your location, or you can spin up a virtual appliance in the cloud like AWS or Azure. And that's something that, that was kind of eye-opening for us once we kind of reached that milestone, is we didn't really realize that all of the broadcast protocols that we had, kind of open. You have NetBIOS, LLMNR, basically anything that broadcasts is vulnerable. And especially if you're not like doing like, digital file signing, with your file servers, because that's not enabled by default. But that one was eye-opening, for us, is, what can be done, to basically capture credentials and stuff with man-in-the-middle attacks. The bottom line is, like, if you're not kind of like encrypting, the traffic, basically anybody can, anybody with a black box can kind of hijack anything on the network, and you'd be surprised at what they can get, like domain admin passwords, people just, the replay type of attacks. But the real eye-opener for us was, when we started kind of, we graduated that level, and then we started doing authenticated pen tests with Crosshair. And that's truly kind of where, the bodies are buried, basically. That'll tell you about, your actual, real risk, and, everybody talks about insider risk, like, hey, it's, the North Korean that know before hires, right? But real insider risk is actually when an endpoint itself gets compromised. And, that's basically, that's also what the authenticated attacks demonstrate, is that you have your employees, behind the computer, and, we have EDR and all these things that kind of like prevent, the malware and stuff. But if they get like token phished or something like that, that's basically your insider threat at that point. And that, that's not a person with bad intentions, it's just, they accidentally blew up the network by, clicking the wrong link or answering the wrong phone call or something.
Yeah.
And so the real eye opener for us is like kind of when we graduated to like the third level. And, this was something that, Crosshair suggested, was that, we do an authenticated pen test. And kind of the real eye opener was like what they could do to the actual, by kind of sniffing the actual contents of like, supposedly protected file shares and those types of things, when, a lot of the time, like, you can find unencrypted information at rest, by having an authenticated account. You can also, use an old piece of software, not be an admin at all, use an old piece of software, and then make yourself a domain admin through a vulnerable file service path. That was kind of like the real eye opener, is that, oh my God, like, we really have to be paying attention to the internal vulnerabilities too. And, we would just kind of, I guess everybody knows, like, hey, you should patch vulnerable software. But we really kind of like found out at that point that we really need to patch, vulnerable software. So that was, those two things is like, examining, they go deeper and examine, kind of the contents of the file server, see what files are kind of lingering out there on the network, if anybody's storing passwords in plain text, those types of things. And then, vulnerable file service paths are a real thing. So if you have like, a version of QuickBooks from, 2013 or something that the owner doesn't want to upgrade, right? Like, ordinarily, most MSPs would be like, oh, that guy's just cheap, right? Not going to upgrade. But if you can demonstrate to them that, like, if you don't keep up with this stuff, and not just like Windows and SQL versions and stuff like that, but if you don't keep up with like your line of business applications, and those types of things, like, you're really putting yourself at risk. Like, I've really, really seen them elevate that to domain admin, so those are kind of the, there's several eye openers, basically. Like, there's not one eureka moment.
Well, I mean, on all of that, it seems like your eyes have been so wide open at this point that if you even try to sleep, it's not going to happen. So Adam found all of this.
I can't sleep.
That's fine. All right, so Adam, let's go to you. Right, like, you found all of these problems for Eric.
Yeah, we found a number, and so just to be clear, we're not just pen testing their stuff; we're pen testing their customers' stuff as well.
Right.
So yeah. So we definitely recommended doing that. We call it assumed breach, right? So because all it takes is one user to click something. And so, yeah, we found all these things, and he referenced one. Sometimes it's over real quick, right? It's like sometimes we find something like an old piece of software, and we see a batch script. Oh, I wonder if this actually could be something that would elevate me. Reset the admin password. Oh, it is. Game over in like less than an hour. But it's not in it. But I think I really want to hit on something Eric Weast said. It's nothing to be ashamed of. They are, first of all, let me just say, they are a very security conscious MSP, because I've talked with a lot of MSPs, and I go around to conferences and speaking engagements and we have other partners. They're very conscious of security, but they have the job of keeping the systems running and then doing all these upgrades and doing just keeping up with technology. So it's just very, very, very hard to keep on top of all these things. But the other thing that really is really important here is that all of these things that we found are lessons learned, and they then up their game, right? So then when our testers go in next time, it's like, all right, well, they caught us doing this, and now we got to figure. It's a cat and mouse game, just like it is with the bad guys. And so it's just that we're not going to harm. We're helping rather than harming. And so by doing these tests, that elevates the game of all of their customers at that point.
Yeah. So let's talk about this then from a customer's perspective, right? Adam, you've helped Eric get to this next level, but what do you do? Like, how are you presenting this to customers? Because, like, granted, Eric and I don't play in the same sandbox when it comes to customers, but Eric can go to a customer and say, like, we're really secure. And I can go to a customer and say, we're really secure. What are some ways that an MSP who would be benefiting from working with a cyber company like Crosshair, how do you present that to a customer? How do you present to the customer, I can take care of your stuff because I can prove that I take care of mine? Like, where's that proof that you're taking care of yours?
You mean Crosshair or the MSP?
Either. Like, how can Crosshair help the MSP prove their security to get more customers?
So one is, you mentioned and I mentioned it earlier, the Trustmark. So we're helping ECW get their Trustmark, basically prepare for that audit, and I think they're about there, because we do a lot of compliance work as well. So I don't know if I want to call that compliance, because I view that as proof, right? It's a certification that and that shows you meet a minimum bar from a security perspective. And from everything I've seen and our team has seen, that particular certification is pretty decent. There are others you can go for, like ISO 27001 and SOC 2. I think for MSPs it doesn't make a ton of sense, but could be. So I think we can help the MSP prepare. So like we just call it's audit readiness support, basically. We can help them get ready for that. And some of that includes, some, not just like looking at documentation, but also some testing as well. So getting them ready for that kind of a thing.
And you were talking about the CompTIA Cybersecurity Trustmark, right?
That's one.
That's correct.
Yeah. There's others. Again, some may want ISO, some may want SOC 2 or other things. Yeah.
So if I'm looking at this from the outside, right? And obviously I don't own an MSP anymore, but I do a lot in this space. And I'm kind of looking at Crosshair as somebody, who's going to come in and validate my defensibility, right? That's kind of what the pen testing and the crawling around somebody's environment is going to do for an MSP. And obviously that translates down to the clients as well. Then you're also providing the expertise on how they should do things, how their processes should be set up to manage the cybersecurity stack that they're managing for their clients. So that's the second kind of, I'm going to say, legs to a stool, right? Because that expertise is something that's very hard. We know we have a lack of employees who can do this, available employees to do this. And they're also very expensive. And so for the average MSP, that's probably pretty hard. And then the third leg of the stool that I would call it is the I just lost it. So we went through defensibility, the expertise. Oh, and again, it's kind of expertise, but there's things that happen very rarely for an individual MSP, like incident response. Most MSPs are only going to have a very few handful of incident response situations in their lifetime. And I also think, in my mind, and Adam, if you could confirm this, does it work better to have a third-party incident response rather than having the MSP who's managing the day-to-day cyber be involved? Does that make sense?
Yes, and it's not, and I would say not just an MSP. We've also been called into other organizations to do IR where they didn't have an MSP; they had some internal IT. And yes, it does, because honestly, we've been through dozens and dozens of them. We have the technical experience and the mindset to do it. And we do a lot of preparatory work with our clients, especially our vCISO clients, where we'll do IR tabletops and DR tabletops. And those things really help, because we've had cases where we literally just did a tabletop, and like a month later that actual scenario happened. And
a hurricane, right?
Yeah, no, it wasn't a hurricane. No, it was a cyber.
No, it was two hurricanes. It was the
yeah.
No one ever expected it.
So we don't say clients' names or anything, but we did a tabletop with Crosshair about how their operation would work in a hurricane, and then like literally 2 weeks later, they were shut down by a hurricane.
Yeah.
And they were ready to deal with that. So they had that fresh in their mind, like this is the playbook on how to respond to this.
Yeah. And there's another one.
It's just kind of ironic. It's like, as soon as you talk about something, you knock on wood, right?
Yeah. And there was another one with another customer. It was a cyber incident, and that thing we shut down. Like everybody's like, okay, we know what to do. So yeah, those things, I think you hit it right, Eric, Anthony. There's maybe even 3 or 4 legs there. Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's 4 legs. A 3-legged stool will fall.
It's extra.
I don't know, Eric. You got anything?
Yeah, no. So I mean, what Crosshair kind of does, or I'm sorry, which Eric?
Not you. That's fine.
Okay, I won the wrestling match this time.
Well, I didn't say producer Eric. So
okay, cool. All right, just making sure. I've been practicing. So like. It's really kind of about the lessons learned and kind of year over year, kind of learning new lessons, and so like I kind of view it like it's a partnership, right? It's Adam's job to open my eyes, right? It's my job to make his life more difficult every single year, every time he does a pen test. Because what we do is when we learn these lessons, we do legitimately replicate them everywhere, right? So, we've made kind of like various hardening, policies and those types of things. And so like where we learn something, we kind of have like, we call it the repository, and so like where we kind of learn one thing from one pen test, we're like, hey, let's just add it to the repository. That script runs every day and hardens our workstations. So it also hardens Adam's life, right? And his pen testers. And but it is kind of like it's a unique, kind of partnership for us, because year over year, we're kind of like challenging each other. And so it's, it's like a good, it's a good game, but it's challenging and, kind of aspects where like, it's constructive, challenging, and so it legitimately helps us to be challenged, and, by doing this, we've definitely reduced, everybody's getting risk assessed or vulnerability scanned or pen tested, whether it's somebody who, we work with Adam, or let's say the parent company, right, of our client says, hey, this is our mandated pen tester. And, we're able to, by learning these lessons, adding that stuff to the repository and continually hardening systems, we're making those vulnerability and remediation efforts a lot shorter, where, we get pen tests back from clients now, kind of after, year 5, and like the IT director, like, they don't believe us. They're like, the list is too short. But it's actually, they're like, I was expecting us to be working on this for 6 months, but we're able to use the lessons that we learn here to really shorten, our remediation cycles, not just for the pen tests that we're involved with, but all of our clients as a whole.
It's good to be able to take that knowledge and disseminate it across the board, which, that's something we should all be doing in general. Is like, if you get a piece of info, like, anytime a client tells me something that I'm like, oh, I didn't know that piece of information, I'm immediately telling every other client about that information. That's one of the games of how we stay on top of stuff, because we just want to keep clients from Googling the answer. That's what they pay us for. They pay us for the answers. That way they don't have to Google it. Well, look, this guy, we're getting a little close in time. This all sounds wonderful. Eric, not producer Eric, regular Eric. Where can people find you online? And then Adam, I'm going to come to you with one last piece. But Eric, where can people find you online, find out more about you and ECW?
Yeah. So they can, our website, we've been around for about 21 years, so our website domain is ecwcomputers.com. But in that time, we're looking to, to kind of evolve like our branding to be a bit more modern. But for right now, we have 2 different, kind of points of presence, in terms of our business verticals. So we have ecwcomputers.com. And then we also have rxcloud.org. So that's RX, like the prescription, cloud.org. And the ECW Computers side of the house is, basically our managed services, infrastructure, cloud solution, the security services that we offer. And then RX Cloud is kind of a more specialty, unique niche that we've launched, where we're hosting a lot of healthcare providers and pharmacies, in Microsoft Azure, and kind of leveraging Azure Virtual Desktop and those types of things. So those are kind of the 2 places to find us.
Awesome. And then Adam, where can people find out about Crosshair Cyber?
Yeah, so our website's crosshaircyber.com. We're also on LinkedIn. You can we have a company page, and my page is out there as well.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Producer Eric, any final words?
Yeah, I think this is a different model than a lot of MSPs use to approach cybersecurity, but I think it is definitely one that will work for specific MSPs who, A, want to kind of up their game and get that third-party validation from a trusted cybersecurity vendor, and be able to have their systems tested on a regular basis, and again, also make use of that expertise, especially, incident response, again, is just one of those things that is very tricky. And if you don't do them all the time, it's really easy to mess up.
Yeah. Leverage the expertise out there in the market. That's what makes us better entrepreneurs and better business owners, is by realizing what we can't do ourselves and getting someone in who can do it for us, whether that's marketing, sales, or in this case, even cyber. Well, thanks, Eric and Adam, for being here. Follow us along at facebook.com/group/all things MSP. See all of this in high def glory over at youtube.com/@allthingsmsp. Follow us on all of your favorite podcasting tools, which you're using to listen to this episode anyway. And don't forget to leave us a review. That's producer Eric. I am not producer Justin. Bye.
Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. You can also follow us on Facebook, but better yet, go ahead and join the Facebook group. You can also follow us on Instagram if that's your thing. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at All Things MSP to catch us in all of our video glory. And last but certainly not least, if LinkedIn is your thing, you can follow us there as well. And a special thank you to our premier sponsors, SuperOps, MoveBot, GoZinta, EasyDmark, and Comtech. And we also want to thank our vendor sponsors. The All Things MSP podcast is a BizPow LLC production.